Hi, welcome everyone to the Sparring Job Census 2022 Nigeria. This is Anand Prabhathan, Partners and Campaign Managers with Power for All. I thank you everyone who's joined us as panelists and as well as attendees. As part of this launch session, I'd like to thank first Clean Technology Hub, who's our in-country partner in Nigeria, and also Get Invest, our funders for this particular project. To give a little bit of background about Get Invest is a European program which supports investments in renewable energy. The program targets private sector business and project developers, financiers, and regulators to build sustainable energy markets in developing countries. Such finances to access advisory, market information, funding databases, and matchmaking events. This program is supported by the European Union, Germany, Sweden, and Netherlands, Austria, and works closely with initiatives and business associations in the energy sector. With that note, before going into the details and findings of this presentation and me welcoming all the panelists who are here for this session, I would like to have the honor of welcoming Dr. Shigun, who's ex-president of the Renewable Energy Agency of Nigeria, to give a welcome keynote address for this audience here. Dr. Shigun, your floor is yours.
Thank you, Anand. A very good morning to everyone. And it's a pleasure to be invited to give an opening shot at this launch. I recognize every one of us who's joined, and especially the wife of the governor of Ondo State, who's just also joining us. Yes, and let me also say, correctly, I stepped out of the role of the president of RIAN 2 days ago. So we have a new president. But it's been very exciting to be, on that role for over 6 years. And I must also say that we had very strong support from Power for All, particularly in starting the association. So thanks to Power for All, for the initiatives. Let me also quickly, say a little bit about the distributed renewable energy sector in Nigeria. That is growing very fast, and also the value and the importance of this census survey that has been launched by Power for All. I think the first session or the first survey was done in 2018 or 2019, and it was very exciting when I went through the reports, showing clearly, the number of jobs that's been created, particularly in Nigeria, from distributed renewable energy companies, and the growth rate, and the growth rate, even in comparison to regular sources of power, for example, fossil fuel. And there's a marked difference between the number of jobs that's created by distributed renewable energy companies and sector as compared to what the regular for example, oil and gas and the Nigerian electricity sector. For example, an estimated figure in 2017 says Nigerian electricity, gas, and steam sector created about 10,000 jobs. But if you compare this to what the direct former jobs created by DRE companies in the same period, almost about both productive use, direct informal jobs and direct jobs, over 30,000, if I'm correct. And then the expectation between 2022 and 2023, it's around about 52,000. So you can imagine the importance of this exercise and the fact that there's need to build a lot of capacity in this sector. So what we are currently even witnessing now is, as a player in this sector, is the shortage of workforce to meet the growing rate of the DRE sector in Nigeria. And this report is clearly showcasing the need to continually develop this capacity of personnel, installers, last mile distributors, sales agents, technicians, and the rest. And it's been proven very clearly that more jobs are created by DRE value chain, and I will use the word value chain because beyond the distributors, there are extra, for example, end users also create jobs. I will use a typical example of my barber that I started about 6 years ago. that deployed a simple standalone solar system. Today, he has about 4 shops. He's created additional 3 shops. When we met him, he had about 2 staff working with him. Today, he has about 12 or 13 people working with him. And so you can imagine the impact of DRE in creating additional jobs. So this exercise is pretty very important, and it gives us the numbers so that we begin to train people. I recently joined an institute that trains installers and technicians in Nigeria, and also sales agents and people who want to startups, developing their capacity. I can also say very clearly, I mean, for example, Her Excellency, who is also here with us, the wife of the governor of Ondo State, has been training young girls who can take up career in this space. So we are seeing a development of a pool of staff towards meeting the numbers in years to come. So this exercise for me is very important for the sector. And let me also mention finally, this report is helping us in the industry to advocate very strongly for some incentive with government. I know when we were preparing a study funded by the FCDO, I made reference to this report that was made. And the idea is that government is saying the industry is asking for waivers, VAT, incentives, and the rest, and that this is going to reduce the revenue of government. The only way we can prove to government that this will be in the interest of the sector in Nigeria, and as a matter of fact, at the end of the day, the revenue of government might increase, is to show that more jobs will be created. Okay, so if more jobs are created, then that's covers up the shortfall that government thinks they will experience if they give a waiver. And it's a very good evidence to showcase that more jobs are created if distributed renewable energy companies are more incentivized to do more, and at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everyone, both Nigeria and those companies. So it's exciting to witness another launch of this report. I'll welcome every one of us, and I'll say I look forward to an exciting time. Thank you, and over to you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shekun, for those kind words. Next, I would really like to welcome Dr. Sanaswi Ohare from the Rural Electrification Fund to give his welcome speech for this launch of this report. Is Dr. Sanaswi here? Okay, I think he's not joined in yet. In the meantime, Ifi, are you available online right now?
Yes, I'm here, Anand.
Okay, can we just welcome the panelists? Well, it will be a good time now.
Okay. Welcome everyone. This is the. Are we ready? Can I go?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the second launch of a Powering Jobs report in Nigeria. For those who haven't read the report, I would encourage you to please read it. There are lots of exciting numbers and data that's coming out of that report. I have the honor of introducing our panelists and our speakers today. We have quite a number of exciting speakers as part of this launch. We have Dr. Segun Adaju, who is the immediate past president of Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. Segun recently handed over, after 6 years of running RIAN, to a new executive just yesterday or day before yesterday. And we welcome you, Dr. Adaju, to this launch. Welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know if Sanusi is here, Dr. Harry. If he's not, then I'll move over to Damilola Asalaye. We also want to welcome Damilola Ashalaye, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Ashdam Solar, and now the Vice President of the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. Damilola was one of those who was recently elected at the RIAN AGM just 2 days ago. We welcome you, Damilola. Is Damilola here?
Thank you. Yes, I'm right here. Thank you, Fee. I'm glad to be here today. Looking forward to a very good engagement. Thank you.
And then next on the panelists list is somebody who I greatly admire and someone who is a champion of renewable energy sector in Nigeria, but more especially around women in renewable energy, women and girls in renewable energy. And it's no other person than Her Excellency, Mrs. Betty Anyanwu Akeredolu. She's the First Lady of Ondo State, and she's also the founder of Be More Empowered Girls Foundation, a foundation that is focused on getting girls into the STEM field and using renewable energy as a platform to do that. So we welcome you very much, Her Excellency, to this panel discussion.
Thank you for having me, and good morning all.
Good morning, ma'am. Okay, then we also have another person who I also very much admire. We call her the grandmama of the renewable energy sector. She's no other than Dr. Anita Okoribudo. She's the president of the Women in Renewable Energy Association, the longtime president of the Women in Renewable Energy Association, another champion for women and girls in the sector, and one of the leading voices that is amplifying the voices of women in the renewable energy sector. We welcome you, Madam Okoribudo. Is she on? Do we have Anita on? Okay, we'll move on very quickly. I also wanted to introduce Uche Ugoji. Uche is the project manager for the Nigeria Electrification Project. This is a project that is run by the Rural Electrification Agency and is World Bank and AFDB funded. And that project has become the flagship project that is driving a lot of renewable energy projects across the country in Nigeria. So we welcome you, Uche. If you're here, please say hello.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Now we move over to Yusuf Adamu Khalil. Mr. Khalil is the chief instructor, electrical, the Department of Training at NAPTIN. NAPTIN stands for the National Power Training Institute. And this is the foremost training institute of the power sector in Nigeria, focused on driving the training and upskilling of all the electrical and even the non-electrical and technical staff that are working in the power sector. Please, we welcome you, Mr. Khalil. If you're around, please say hello. If you're on mute, please unmute yourself, say hello. Okay, we'll move on again very quickly and come back to those who are probably struggling with their microphones. The next person I have on my screen is Mr. Tobilola Fadeshere. He's an associate on the business advisory team at Olon. Olon Impact Investors. They're impact investors investing in the off-grid renewable energy sector in Nigeria and are the largest investors in the sector in Nigeria. A lot of the businesses in Nigeria have been beneficiaries of Olon, either as investees or grantees. This is really an organization or company that is really focused on helping the sector grow. So we welcome you, Mr. Fadeshere.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Well, we also have Anand Patanjali. Anand is the Partnerships and Campaign Manager at Power for All. Say hi, Anand.
Hi, thank you, Ife. Happy to be here.
All right. And then we have Hannibal behind. Hannibal is the research manager at Power for All as well. Power for All is the one that is hosting this Powering Jobs report. So we invite you to say hi, Hannibal.
Thank you, Ife. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, we're going to move into the first session immediately. The first panel immediately.
Ife, I think we have someone to speak on behalf of Dr. Sanusri here. So after that,
okay,
we'll go into the presentation.
Okay.
I believe we have Mr. Kabir is here. I think he has been promoted to a panelist now. Mr. Kabir, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everyone. Apologies on behalf of the Executive Director, Rural Electrification Fund. He has had to attend an emergency meeting. However, I would read out his goodwill message. Sorry, can you hear me all?
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
please
we hear
go
you. Go ahead, please.
All right. It's my pleasure to join all the key stakeholders here today for the official launch of the 2022 Powering Job Census. It delights me that stakeholders are actually deliberating accessing jobs and specialized expertise in the renewable energy ecosystem. For us at the REA, we understand the pivotal role innovation and quality expertise continues to play within the energy space. This report being launched today is commendable as it advocates for energy access jobs to be at the center of national and international development policies. I commend the team at Power for All, Clean Tech Hub, Rockefeller Foundation, JEPS, and other stakeholders who saw the need to collaborate on this very important component of the ecosystem. As an implementing agency of the federal government, we have witnessed how the decentralized renewable energy sector continue to serve as a catalyst for job creation. We also see the role of the sector in alleviating unemployment while ending energy poverty. We have continued to deliberately target our effort towards the social and economic impact of the REA sector in our day-to-day activities. As shown by job recovery and growth during the COVID-19 pandemic, decentralized renewable energy is a resilient sector. This is also why the federal government, rather than allow the negative impact of the pandemic to take a toll on the nation, proactively activated the Economic Sustainability Plan to optimize the opportunities in the sector through the Solar Power Nigeria program. The decentralized renewable energy sector, as we have seen, is one of the fastest and most cost-effective approaches to ending energy poverty. The energy access gap is huge. However, apart from the efforts of the Federal Ministry of Power as well as the Rural Electrification Agency in optimizing DRE solutions to closing this gap, it is important to also continue to nurture a solid workforce to drive this process. It is obvious that with a population the size of Nigeria, we are unable to cater to all our energy needs via the grid. At REA, we have proven over and over again that the decentralized renewable energy works and the sustainable implementation of the decentralized renewable energy has direct impact on the lives of Nigeria. We wish you a happy deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those kind words, Kabir, on behalf of the Executive Director, and we wish to take forward this report with him as well. We will share with you the report findings in this presentation and also give him a copy of this report as well. Thank you for joining in. Next, we can go on with the presentation. Just to give an overview, Power for All We came into the sector in 2015. We came out of the sector understanding a need. There's a need for creating an environment ecosystem for the companies and policies and implementation to happen in a more effective manner to achieve the SDG goals of 2030. Our mission is to mobilize this network in many countries where energy access issues is a crucial issue. And Nigeria is one of those key countries. We do operate in many countries in Africa and in India as well. One of the key objectives of this Powering Jobs outlook and approach was the three-pronged approach of advocacy, activation, and awareness. Awareness was the DRE, like how many solar has infiltrated in many of the countries and now become the most popular choice of energy access. But still not of awareness needed to be done in terms of its applications. Solar being its unique, decentralized in nature, its application varies so much and it's very effective in its downstream implications. And that awareness had to be reached out to both the people and the policymakers and also the innovators who are innovating these products. So awareness was a key STEM approach that we are taking to this Powering Jobs campaign. The next was the advocacy. Advocacy, as you know, is very critical with respect to policy implementation and getting the right policies and financial measures in place for a sector to grow. And without that, the DRE sector and its various implementation prospects will not go forward. So for Powering Jobs, especially creating those job numbers and getting those people employed, as well as having those people in the pipeline for meeting the 2030 targets, we wanted advocacy to be a critical role in this. And next was creating the ecosystem, where getting the nexus of companies and policymakers and people to play a crucial role in creating a financial ecosystem so more people can invest and benefit out of this. In this slide deck, we are going to give an overview of the goals of the Powering Jobs campaign, the context of the 2022 census, and my colleague Hannibal, who's a research manager at Power for All, will take you through the research scope, the estimates, workforce trends, and key findings, because I know he'll be very excited because he himself worked on the Nigeria report and the Kenya and the India report, all of the reports, and he knows the numbers man here. So I welcome him as well to this session. So before going into the overview of the campaign, first I'd like to thank our funding partners and our in-country partners. We'd like to thank our funders, the Rockefeller Foundation, Good Energies, and Get Invest, and our global in-country partners who helped us with this survey numbers. We had over 350 survey respondents, and that would not have been possible without the help of these generous names written here: GAP, AMDA, Class Shortlist, Council for Energy, Environment and Water, Ashton, Undria from Uganda, Clean from India, Gogla, Ethio Resource Group, CREA from Kenya, AFCIA, and Clean Technology Hub. And Clean Technology Hub is our Nigerian partner. If he and the team are present here today as well, we have sincere gratitude for them for putting up for all our requests in the last 1 year and helping us with this report and the report launch today. To come to the campaign context itself, we are heading towards 2030, and there are like millions of jobs available in this sector. As per an IRENA report, 4.5 million jobs are available worldwide in the SDG 7 to achieve SDG 7 and in the DRE sector by 2030. And more than 20,000 DRE companies are needed to power this. That means, in turn, 4.5 million jobs can be created. And what we tried to do when we started was, and back in 2018-19, when the first report came out, we realized that there are larger numbers for renewable energy as a whole, but we don't have any kind of a specific set data for the decentralized renewable energy, which is much more informal, much more diversified and dispersed in many pockets. And how do you quantify this? How do you showcase that this is also a jobs engine? And how do you convince policymakers that it's not about large scale solar, it's also small scale solar, and small scale applications also matter. And that's where the Powering Jobs campaign took its birth. And that's first powering jobs report came into existence. And that was in 2019. We all have gone through the pandemic, an unfortunate circumstance. But the sector, I mean, what we were quite interested about the 2020 census, 2022 census, is the sector has fared through the pandemic. We all know that we were all in lockdowns, many sectors took big. We wanted to see what has the numbers changed in the last 2 years, especially post-pandemic. Has the sector been resilient or has it not? And how has the gap in training programs? What has been the gap in women's numbers, women's participation in the sector? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Has it remained stable? And these were the motivating factors for us to do this 2022 census. And we realized that one of the key findings from our 2019 was training was a big skill gap that we identified in 2019. And has it made any progress? And has it changed? Because without training and jobs, we cannot achieve the SDG 7 goal and meet the 2030 targets. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to my research partner, Mr. Hannibal, to take over the research findings and officially launch the report for Nigeria. Hannibal, over to you.
All right, thanks, Anand. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, everybody, for attending our official launch of the Nigeria Powering Jobs Census. I would also love to thank the Nigerian dairy sector, the Nigerian dairy companies, and all of you who have attended this session today for participating in our census in many different ways, either by answering our survey or attending the steerco meetings. Your insights and your information have been very valuable towards the successful completion of this census. All right, next slide. All right, good. So yeah, the Powering Job Census for Nigeria is officially launched, and you can download and read the report at powerforall.org. Next slide. All right, so let me start by kind of providing context on the dairy sector. So from this census and from the previous census that we have conducted in 2019, we know that dairy is a major kind of creator of jobs. So according to our estimates in our current census, we found that in sub-Saharan Africa, only around 375,000 people are directly employed in the sector. So this is people who are employed by dairy companies. If we count the number of people who are indirectly part of the dairy sector, so this would be people where they had job opportunities because there's an increase in production of goods and services, because there is energy, the number would be bigger, but just the number of people who are working for dairy companies is estimated around 375,000. So this shows how a big employer the sector is. And what we have seen in the African countries that we have studied, including Nigeria, is that the PICO and the solar home system sectors are kind of the engine of employment in the dairy sector. So most of the people who work in the dairy sector, almost more than 80 or 90% work within the PICO and solar home system. And another aspect is that the dairy sector also creates employment opportunities for youth and women. So generally, around 32% of the employment in the renewable energy sector is occupied by women, which is higher than the oil and gas sector. So even though we have not achieved gender parity in the renewable energy and also in the dairy sector, but it can be said that the performance is better than the traditional energy or even fossil fuel energy sector. Next slide. So as Anand was saying, so the purpose of the Powering Job Census is basically to provide an evidence base for the dairy sector. And I think Dr. Shegun earlier raised a good anecdote about how we can use this data to convince the Nigerian government so that we can have favorable policies for the dairy sector. And that's what the census aims to achieve. And how do we do that? So for this, for the 2022 census, and as I had said earlier, this is our second edition. Our first edition was launched in 2019. But for our second edition, there were 5 countries that we studied. So that would be India, Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, and Ethiopia. In our first edition, we did the study for India, Kenya, and Nigeria. So this is the second study that we are doing for Nigeria. And in this study, we looked at direct employment, and this includes full-time employment, part-time employment, contractor, independent contractor work, and also informal employment. But we are only looking at the employment created by DRE companies themselves, hence the term direct employment. So this leaves out indirect employment or productive use energy employment, which is also a big job creator by itself, but due to various reasons, it's not part of the scope of this census. We have also looked at the full scope of DRE technologies, so that includes Pico solar home systems, commercial and industrial and standalone systems, and also mini-grid systems. In terms of data collection, we relied on the data that we had received from DRE companies. So across those 5 countries, we have around 350 responses, which is a big number. And in Nigeria, we had, I think, around 70 responses. So it was an active participation, especially in Nigeria, where around 70 companies fully participated in the survey. And the data from the survey was supplemented by focus group discussions that we had conducted in all countries, including Nigeria. And we also had conducted expert interviews with some of you who have attended the call today. Next slide. Okay. But yeah, so let's get into kind of the major results that we have found from the survey. So as I was saying earlier, the purpose of the census is to count the number of employees in the Nigerian DRE or distributed renewable energy sector, right? So according to our census, we have found that in 2021, the DRE sector in Nigeria employed around 50,000 people. So as you see in the left-hand side of this slide, you see a chart which shows the annual employment in the sector. If you pay close attention to the chart, there are three insights that come out of the chart. So the first one is that the dairy sector is a major employer, as we were just mentioning now. So in 2021, we have employed around 50,000 people. So that's a big number. And that means that the dairy sector can play a significant role in kind of addressing the issues of employment and unemployment in Nigeria. So that's the first insight. The second insight is the future is, the outlook is bright for the dairy sector in Nigeria. So if you look at the projected estimate for 2020 to 2023, we are expecting an increase of dairy employment in Nigeria, and it's expected to reach around 80,000 by 2023. So from 2021 figure of around 50,000 to 2023 figure of 8,000, that's a big jump, which means that we expect the sector to grow very fast in terms of employment. And this is mostly propelled or supported by the fact that Nigeria has one of the fastest growing DRE markets in Sub-Saharan Africa and also globally. There is still kind of untapped demand for DRE products as a country with almost 90 million people who don't have access to electricity currently. So there is a lot of gap to fill, and DRE companies are providing different types of products to fill that gap. And while doing that, that is creating a lot of job opportunity for Nigerians. And as a point of reference, in 2021, the oil and gas sector created 65,000 or employed 65,000 Nigerians. And we are saying by 2023, the dairy sector is going to employ 8,000 Nigerians. So that means the dairy sector will employ more people than is expected to employ more people than the oil and gas sector. And the third insight that I would like to for you to focus on is if you look at the 2019 and 2020 figure, when the unfortunate pandemic happened, we were all affected, and the Nigerian dairy sector was also affected. But compared to the overall economy, there was mild job loss. I think around 2,000 jobs were lost in 2020 compared to 2019. And in 2021, the sector was able to bounce back stronger. It was able to bounce back and create more employment, even more, greater number of employment than the pre-pandemic level. So this shows that the dairy sector has been resilient during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Yeah, so and kind of just to give you a point of reference, as I was mentioning earlier, we have done this census in 5 countries: India, Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, and Ethiopia. And what this slide shows is basically comparing the performance of Nigeria compared to other dairy markets. So Nigeria is expected to become the largest dairy player in Africa by 2022. So before that, before 2022, before 2021, Kenya, which is considered the traditional powerhouse in terms of the dairy market, was the largest employer. But Nigeria is expected to surpass Kenya and become the largest employer in the sector. And what we see in this chart is that overall the dairy sector has been resilient in most of the countries that we have studied. So in India, Kenya, in all of the countries, there was a mild loss in employment, but they were able to bounce back quickly. I mean, Uganda and Nigeria, Uganda and Ethiopia are still on the path to recovery, but in most countries that we have studied, the dairy sector was resilient. But Nigeria's case is slightly different in that it was one of the countries where the dairy sector was able to bounce back faster and is on a trajectory of faster growth after 2021. So out of the 5 countries that we studied, Nigeria has the fastest growth in employment, around 20% on a year-to-year basis after 2021. So it did not only bounce back faster, but also there is a faster growth trajectory in the Nigerian dairy sector. Next slide, please. So in addition to the employment figures that we discussed just now, we also looked at in terms of where is the most dairy jobs created, in terms of which technologies create the most dairy jobs, who has the jobs, and then kind of where the jobs lie. So what we found for Nigeria is that currently 95% of the direct employment in the dairy sector is created by pico and solar home systems. And this is due to big demand or untapped demand for solar lanterns and multi-light systems in Nigeria. And even before the pandemic, there was accelerated growth in demand for multi-light systems and solar lanterns. And as I said earlier, there was a slight dip because of the pandemic. But after the pandemic, the country has returned back to the path of high demand for those products. And we expect this demand is gonna continue for the next few years because, as I said earlier, Nigeria is kind of the largest country in Africa in terms of people who don't have, or the most populous, I mean, the country with the highest number of people who don't have access to electricity. And those people who don't have access to electricity would most of the time demand the smaller solar pump systems and pico systems. So this demand, which is expected to create more employment in the coming few years. And the rest, which is 5% of the direct employment, is accounted by commercial and industrial and mini grid systems. We also expect growth in employment in those segments. First of all, because for CNI or commercial and industrial, many businesses are looking at standalone solar systems as a power backup options when you have power blackouts. And Nigeria is one of the countries with frequent power outages, and also one of the countries where the power outage lasts longer. So most businesses are affected by the frequent and long power outage. So, and they're looking into standalone systems to complement the grid. And also we expect growth in implement creation in mini-grid technology, because there is a lot of investment in the pipeline for mini-grid. For example, the Nigerian government plans to deploy around 10,000 mini-grids by 2023. And this will create, or this is expected to create a lot of jobs. But one thing to note here is in terms of jobs, so what we have seen is while PICO system and solar home systems create direct employment most of the time, where like most of the employment is created by dairy companies, mini-grids and CNI tend to create a lot of indirect employment. So this is basically a company who has standalone solar systems will be able to expand their operation and hire more people into their or hire more people inside their business. So there is going to be a lot of indirect and productive use employment created by mini-grid and CNI more than the direct employment. One dimension of employment we also looked at is the level of formality. So in Nigeria, in the Nigerian dairy sector, 31% of the employment is informal, and this is significantly lower than Nigeria's overall level of informality, which is estimated around 93%. And what we have seen compared to our previous census, there is an increased level of formalization. In our previous census, which was conducted in 2019, the share of informal employment was around 70%, but this has declined to 31%. So there is an increased level of formalization, which is a great news for the sector. Next slide, please. Good. And we also try to understand how many kind of the share of women participation in the Nigerian dairy sectors, and we found out that 35% of the employment in the dairy sector, or 35% of the positions are occupied by women. And if you look at this figure and compare it to 2019, there is an improvement definitely. And in 2019, the figure, the estimate was around 27%. And within less than 3 years, we have increased this figure to around 35%, which is a great news. And with this path of with this trend of change, one can say that Nigerian dairy sector can achieve parity in less than 10 years. But still, the share of women participation is lower than the Nigeria's overall kind of share of women in the labor force, which is 44%. So compared to Nigerian average, we are doing less, or we are not doing playing our share, but there is a change in the right direction. And what we have heard from DRA companies who have attended our focus group discussions, and from different reports that was published by different entities, including the Renewable Energy Association and also the Women in Renewable Energy, is that women tend to be overrepresented on specific positions, mostly non-technical. So there is a concentration of women in administrative, less administrative positions, but there are fewer women in technical and managerial roles. So the dairy sector overall, as a sector, we need to do better in terms of first increasing the share of women in the sector, but also improving the quality of roles or the quality of jobs that women tend to get employed. So having more women in technical and managerial roles is going to be crucial for the dairy sector in the coming few years. Next slide, please. One thing that we also looked at in the census is the level of training and generally skills development program. So what we have understood from our census is that 70% of the dairy companies in Nigeria provide some type of training to their staff. And we have classified this into two. So the first one is internal and the second one is external training. So internal is training, any type of training provided by the dairy companies themselves. And external is training provided by external actors such as even NAPTIN, development partners, or NGOs. And in terms of hours, we have found that on average, a dairy worker in Nigeria receives 110 hours of training, which is encouraging. But what we have understood from our conversations with DRE companies is while the quantity of training has been improving, we need to do more in terms of first improving the quality of training, and then second, accessibility, because most staff in the DRE sector are not receiving adequate training. And we will also try to understand what the challenges are to ensure that there is the necessary talent and workforce in the DRE sector for the future. And companies have mentioned that first, they don't have the necessary financial resources to conduct training internally. And also that there is a shortage of high quality training programs that would especially reach the DRE sector workers who work in remote parts of Nigeria. And then third, they are kind of hesitant to invest in training because there is issue of retention. Staff tend to leave early, so it's kind of hard to put a lot of investment in training employees. So that means more needs to be done to ensure that the workforce and the staff in the DRE sector are happy and satisfied, and they want to stay in the sector for long term. Next slide, please. Good, yeah. So I think that brings us to the end of a brief summary of the results of our census in Nigeria. If you go to powerforall.org and download the report, you will find a lot more information on the Nigerian DRE sector and also on overall the DRE sector globally. So anyone interested can go and read. But I would love to leave you with kind of 3 key messages from this presentation. The first one being that the DRE sector is a major job creator in Africa and in South Asia. As I was saying earlier, 370,000 jobs were created in Africa and around 8,000 jobs were created in India in 2021, which is almost 500,000 people are employed in those, and 500,000 people are employed in the DRE sector in the global south, which is a big figure by itself. And we can do more to increase with growth in demand for dairy products. This level of employment is expected it's expected to increase in the coming few years. The second message that I found to be very crucial is that the dairy sector has been resilient. So there was, as with any sector in the economy, there was job loss in the dairy sector when the pandemic happened, but the job losses were milder than many sectors, so that the sector has shown its resiliency, and the sector has been able to recover faster than many of the other sectors in the economy within a year or two. So that's a testament for the resiliency of the dairy sector. And maybe the third message, which would be critical to kind of have it is the sector needs to do more first in terms of improving women's participation, and also ensuring that there is available future talent. And this can be done by providing training or different types of upskilling and reskilling programs to the dairy workforce in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannibal, for the presentation. And the link is provided in the chat box. Please use download the report and ask us any question and answers. We try to answer it live, or you can shoot us an email and we'll be happy to answer it. As Hannibal said in the closing conclusion slide, today's panel discussion is going to revolve around 3 main themes. The first theme is going to be around the role of public-private partnerships in creating that nexus ecosystem for creating that positive policy environment for the growth of the DRE sector. The second is going to be on the role of training in creating this workforce. And the third is going to be on the role of youth and women increasing their participation into this workforce. With that, I'm going to hand over this session to Ms. Damilola to take forward the panel discussion and moderate.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever we are watching from. So my name is Damilola Ashale, and I'm happy to be here this morning to be moderating this session for the Powering Jobs, and also glad to have a lot of trailblazing women and men on the panel session for today. So the theme for this panel session includes training and youth. So we're going to be looking at how we are creating a meaningful career path to attract talent and youth in the DRE sector. We're also going to be focusing on the favorable growth environments and the opportunities the role of public and private enterprises is fostering in DRE adoption, job, and the last but not the least, you're also going to be focusing on gender and youth, where we're going to be discussing the opportunity that the DRE creates to break traditional gender workplace roles. And with me on this panel session are 5 amazing people. And I would like to call on each one of them to briefly introduce themselves before we go into the main questions for today. So I would like to call on Madam Anita Okuribido. Can you please kindly unmute yourself and introduce yourself briefly, ma'am?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, all. Like you said, I'm Chief Mrs. Anita Nana Okuribido, the founder and the CEO of Smiling Simon Greenfield Foundation. And we are into energy institution, particularly for women. We established the first African Women Green Energy Institute. And I'm also the president of Women in Renewable Energy Association. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Okuribido. I'm glad to have you on this panel session today. I also like Tobilola Fadeshere to introduce himself briefly, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Tobilola Fadeshere. I work at Olon. Olon is an impact investment firm that focuses on the renewable energy sector. My job there revolves around fundraising, portfolio management, and providing advisory services to investee companies. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you on board, Tobilola. So Mr. Uche Ogoji, can you please introduce yourself briefly? You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Uche. You're still on mute. Good. We can't hear you, Mr. Uche, though you're on mute, but you can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now, Dan?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the panel now. As you had mentioned, my name is Uche Ogoji. I am an impact and monitoring evaluation specialist working on the Nigerian electrification project. I have worked across several industries, and it's a pure joy to be working in this subsector to try to help deploy energy access to as many Nigerians as we can possibly do in the shortest possible time. It's my pleasure to be on the panel, and I'm excited at what we can share today to add value. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on board here today too. And I also want to welcome Mr. Yusuf Adamu to briefly introduce himself.
Hey, hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay. My name is Khalil Yusuf Adamu, as you have rightly said, and I am a electrical power of vocational and technical training relating to the power industry. I am a chief instructor with the National Power Training Institute of Nigeria. I have worked within the industry for several years before reverting back to facilitation in the training institute. And part of the aspects I do train relates to renewable energy as well. And I think that was why I was recommended to be in this panel. I am very happy to be with you all, and I pray that we'll have successful deliberations. Thank you so much.
Yeah, nice to have you on board. And the last but not the least, I would like Her Excellency Chief Mrs. Betty Anyanwu Akeredolu to also introduce herself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can hear you, Excellency, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Damilola. I'm very delighted to be part of this panel. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Betty Anyanwu Akeredolu. I'm the founder of the More Empowered Girls Foundation, the organizer of the annual 2-week intensive program for young girls in secondary school, where they are trained on solar technology, ICT, because of the need to close the gap in STEM. I'm also a researcher and an investor. Firstly, I'm a fish farmer, I'm an aquaculturist by profession. Because of the interest I have in renewable energy, my PhD program is on application of solar energy in fingerling production, and we have demonstrated that is possible. And of course, I'm the First Lady of Ondo State. Thank you.
Nice to have you on board, Excellency Ma, and I'm so thrilled to be moderating this session with everyone on board. So my first question is going to be going to Uche, and my question is on Nigeria's regulatory environment, on fostering a favorable growth environment for companies, and in turn, creating more jobs. So my question to you, Mr. Uche, is that Nigeria showed the most impressive growth in the jobs and recovery from the pandemic, and is expected to grow even further in 2023. The report said 50,000 in the year 2021, and by year 2023 is going to be around 75,000. The sector is expected to create more than twice the number of DRE jobs created in 2019. So what measures have the government, public and private sectors put in place to spur this growth? Mr. Uche, this question is for you.
Thank you, Damilola. I think first of all, we need to appreciate the coincidental nature of the data you've just shared. Nigeria at the point when the pandemic hit the globe was already on a phase towards, driving improved access to electricity and energy across the country. There's been a huge deficit over the years, and luckily we've had government sort of try to drive energy access. And one thing you would find interesting is that this is shared among the other participants, like you've mentioned. So it's not just government, it's the public sector, led by the development space, development partners, who either provide funding or provide capacity support, as well as the private sector. You would find that a lot of private sector participants have either sprung up within this time frame or have come from other parts of the world to try to join in, facilitating improved access to energy. So in terms of the timing, you will find that the timing is perfect.
Mr. Uche, since you're frozen, or is it from my side?
He does seem to be frozen to me as well.
Okay, and he was giving very good inputs there. So while we wait on for Mr. Uche to join us back, Madam Okurubido, I'll be calling you next. And my question for you is that Nigeria's regulatory environments on fostering a favorable growth for companies and in turn creating more jobs. So that is my focus. That is the focus for your question. And the question is, what can be done to help increase awareness of decentralized renewable energy options, or decentralized renewable energy options that would help to drive youth involvement and also create job opportunities?
Thank you so much, Damilola. I would first and foremost like to thank Power for All for this forum, because it's something that is so dear to my heart, particularly as a woman activist and for women in renewable energy and for girls as well. First and foremost, I believe in skill set acquisition, capacity building, and the first and foremost is to create what I would call a kind of community-based organization where the women, the youth, the girls are identified, and for the particular need of that community for their energy access, energy need, and how to fill the energy gap. When we have been able to do the research and when we have been able to also do the need assessments, we will know the type of skill set, with precision, the specific skill set, to apply. And I would always love to make sure that we look into the evidence-based stories to elevate and legitimize skills and training. What do I mean by that? There must be certification. It's not enough to just say we want to go into skills, capacity building, and we do it in the cloud without any certification. There must be authentic certification for training so that wherever, these, wherever they go, they'll be able to have something that they are confident of. And it is not enough to just change the narrative of job creation and so on and so on. There must be sustainability. There must be sustainability. It is not enough to recognize the different ways of, getting the youth, the women, into jobs and all that. We must move from recognition to action. We must be very proactive about what we are doing, make sure we have sustainable curriculum, sustainable line of action, so that whatever they do today would be authentic in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Okribido, for all those wonderful inputs. I was just jotting down as you were talking. I could say that there are very main points that you made here, which includes that we must move from recognition to action. We must move from recognition to action, and then we must be proactive, and also have sustainability in what we do. And I believe that the Powering Jobs Consensus that's just been released it covers this aspect, and I'm employing everyone to go and download that document and go through it to know how to actually create more awareness and the options that are available in the decentralized renewable energy. And my next question goes to you, ma'am, Excellency Betty Anyao Akeredolu, and it's focused on women's participation in the Nigerian decentralized renewable energy sector. And the dairy sector is, right now, women participation in Nigerian dairy sector is around 35%. And hence, there is still a long way for us in achieving gender parity as per the Powering Jobs Consensus 2022. So my questions to you, Excellency, is that what are some specific measures that governments, companies, and training institutes can take to help bring in and retain more women in solar jobs?
Thank you for that question. Firstly, the recognition of that gap is very, very important. And that's why any intervention has to know where they are working or where they are and where they are working towards. So the 35% gives us an idea of where we are right now and where are we going. We have to set a goal. And to be able to attain, are you with me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I'm
okay.
Yes,
like I said, that data is an indication of where we are. And then we set a goal where we want to be. And to achieve that, a training comes in, sensitization comes in. And I want to use what we're doing in Ondo State with Be More Empowered Girls Foundation as an example of how we can up our game. I know that right now within the sector is about a male thing. But with the kind of program we are undertaking in Ondo State, very soon we might catch up. And the good thing is that we are making young girls realize that this sector is also where they can be. Traditionally, it might be viewed as a male-dominated sector or the kind of job meant for men and boys. But we have, let me say, I hope I'm not using very strong words. We have damaged or dislodged that impression. And my girls can climb rooftops to fix the solar panel. My girls can assemble and build solar panels. And the beauty of it all, it's a pleasant surprise, but also beautiful to watch. So gradually, we will move away that such jobs are meant for boys, and it becomes a job that is meant for all, proving that this sector can also be made to be gender neutral. One other thing we can also do is to keep on having a forum like what you did a day or 2 days ago, where we can also bring the issues to the general public. Such forum create that kind of interaction, and people will also know what is happening on the renewable energy space. And then we can now take it home, for instance, to government to do more. Again, let me use the Be More experience to buttress my point. When we started, I wouldn't say that it was embraced. It wasn't embraced, but we trudged on with Ashton supporting the very first outing. Because if you talk about renewable energy, people say, what's that? And there had been this erroneous impression that solar does not work. But I'm happy that we have overcome that stage. Solar works, and it's being proved on daily basis that solar does work. So from that stage, with their daughters coming home with this new technology, it's like my placement, they say somebody go Igbo land and you brought something new. That's how parents look at the knowledge and skills their daughters bring home after the 2-week intensive program. They've always found it amazing, and they keep on wanting for more. So right now in Ondo State, every home, every parent wants their daughter to be more. They want their daughters to acquire that technology and bring something new. So if we keep up with the pace, I can assure you that a lot more young people would find their way, or even build their careers out of renewable energy sector. And it's really interesting, and it's wonderful and amazing to watch how the development of renewable energy in Ondo State, the rate, in fact, is being accelerated due to the More Empowered Girls Foundation program. And I want to use this opportunity to appeal to the major players in the sector to please open their doors to some of these girls. We can't claim that the 2-week intensive program had transformed them into experts. No. We need that mentoring, we need avenues, we need companies already in the business to take in these girls. Maybe during their vacation, they come, you give them, little stipend here and there to sustain their interest. And I want to also say this, that it was amazing what the transformation, brought about in the trajectory of their career goals or aspiration. Many of them came in, they want to be doctors, they want to be lawyers. But after the 2-week program, everybody now wants to be, on tech, one tech or the other. They want to be solar studies, engineering in connection with solar, or they want to do ICT. And mind you, the two technologies, they are interwoven, they are like twins. For them to use their laptop at home, they need energy. And that energy comes from the solar system that we distributed to every girl at the graduation. And let me also emphasize, this home solar system, it has done a lot. It has made amazing impact, I can tell you that. Again, majority of these girls, they come from underserved communities. Many of them, they've not even, experienced electricity, or if they had, they've been in darkness for years. That home system, that small package we give them is so transformative. Like I mentioned that during my remark, that when you go to those riverine areas and you see these little lights flicking from one hot light, that go there, that's a Bimo girl, and we are very, very proud about it. I know that you want to invest in big time projects, fine, but this home solar system is the low-hanging fruit for us and for everyone. So I want you to really appreciate what that, small technology has done to communities in Nigeria that are underserved. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Excellency Ma. And I can surely say that what you are doing with the BMO girls is very, very wonderful. And as you have rightly said, with such programs as BMO Empowered Girls Foundation, we are going to close that gender gap faster. And another thing that you said that really resonates with me is that the PICO and the solar home system aspect of the renewable energy sector is doing a lot. And even from the powering job that's from the powering job processor that is just released, it says 95% of jobs is being created from that sector. So that sector is really driving a lot. And we should all key into that, because this is the time for us to be more dynamic. So my next question goes to Tobiloba, and it's focused on the role of public and private enterprise in fostering DRE adoption, job growth, and economic stimulus. So Tobiloba, I have two questions for you. And the first one is, how can public-private partnerships help create more demand for the DREs to be able to expand the sector and bridge existing policy gaps? That is the first question. And the second question is that we have seen the sector to be more resilient than most during the COVID-19 pandemic. How can we build a stronger workforce going forward?
Thanks for the question, Damilola. I like to start with the fact that the renewable energy industry in Nigeria is playing a very vital role. One, unlike most other industries, they are helping us create infrastructure. And let's take the case study of companies that do mini grid. In some rural areas in Nigeria, those mini grids are the first source of core infrastructure in those areas, right? And it shows how important the sector is to Nigeria's economic growth, especially if you're looking at inclusive growth, bringing more people into the formal economy and all of that. Now, the private sector has largely been driving the growth in this sector, especially through the financing side and even active entrepreneurship. But government has also been playing its part. I mean, that's why we have the REA, the Rural Electrification Fund, and all of the other stakeholders in the industry. Now, there ought to be a synergy, which we are having, but things can get better, which I think is the crux of this question. And one of the things that needs to be done urgently is looking at the finance that is available to the industry. Now, there's over $1.3 billion in finance available to the industry, and that is a whole lot. I mean, it can active deployment and optimized deployment will help shape things up and, make the industry better. But if you look at what currency those finances are available for, current available finances is in, you see a problem down the line. Most of the finance that is available, that is not grant finance, is in dollars. And don't forget that we are serving a local market. I don't think it's efficient to charge people in dollars, and that's not even the practice. So companies are forced to get funding in dollars, and they have to maybe repay back in Naira. There's a currency mismatch. And that's where one of the things I think the government has to come in. Find a way, working the CBN, Ministry of Finance, and other stakeholders need to find a way to ensure that the exposure to, or the risk that comes with FX dominated finance is mitigated, right? If we can have that, would to go a long way in solving the problem over time. The second point I'd like to stress on is quality. One thing we've noticed more recently is there's been a flux of bad products in the market, and it's affecting the credibility of the industry. And there are two ways we can solve it, or two principal parties that should get more involved in this. That's the Standard Organization of Nigeria and other regulatory body concerned with enforcing quality, right? And also maybe agencies like RIAN, and they have to come together and ensure that we develop one country-specific regulations that say this is a minimum standard that is acceptable. We already have some of those. I think Sun launched one for solar systems like 2 months ago. We have existing ones for mini grid, but I think there's a problem with enforcement, and I understand how difficult it is. But you could imagine when a lot of people are just getting poor quality product, that is the impression they would typically have about the industry over time. And for an industry that can potentially transform Nigeria's power sector, we want to nip all of those quality assurance issues in the bud before they escalate. So quality assurance is one place that private-public partnership can help create more demand and give that confidence. The last thing I'd like to mention is on taxation. If you look at the component of most solar system products, even mini grids and all of that, some of them are imported. And importation exposes us to two kinds of risks. One is people have to source, you're exposed to FS risks. The other one is your price. This directly affects your pricing. Now, when you have those problems in the industry to affect price and affordability, and in a country where we are trying to drive adoption of solar, pricing becomes a problem. Now, if you put that side by side with what the renewable energy industry is doing for Nigeria, we want to say, can import duties on certain renewable energy products get certain types of exemptions? Because those exemptions, maybe reduction from 10 to 15%, would help and affect price down the line, right? And would also boost affordability, right? While we're trying to develop local content and ensure that we are able to produce some of those things in Nigeria, right? So I think, just like I mentioned, we need to get financing right and ensure that government comes in. We need all the money we need, but government has to come in as sort of had like a guarantee. The CBN needs to develop some funding structure that doesn't expose companies to, mitigates the risk factors that arises from FX. We need to control quality. And then we also need to do a lot of consumer education, right? Both from the government side, the regulators, and also the renewable energy players in the renewable energy sector, private players. If we do that, I feel we'll be able to stimulate demand. And at the end of the day, there's a win-win for government achieving its electrification goals. On the other side, private sector are able to now help government gradually solve the problem we have with rural, with low electrification rates across the country. I don't know if I answered the first question right.
Yes, you actually did. And thank you so much for all those great insights. The government needs to come in and help mitigate some of the exposures that we, the private sector, have when we get all these funds in dollar, and then we have to pay in naira. Sometimes we have to pay back in dollar and start seeking for all these funds and how to repay them. It's something that the government can really help us to do. And thank you for that. And also thank you for mentioning the quality. Yeah, we need to have quality assurance in the industry. And these are ways that the government and the private sectors can come together to ensure that we have that quality, and then also implementing the policies for this quality, not just having the policies without implementing them. So for Yusuf, my next question goes to you, and it is on the role of training and skill acquisition. So my question, Yusuf, I have 2 questions for you, is that in Nigeria, we see the number of jobs match those of the oil and gas sector, currently estimated at 65,000 and expected to grow. So how can training institutions like yours and governments tap into the youth of Nigeria and provide them with a career pathway, as well as also develop a skilled pipeline of human capital for energy access jobs. And should I read the second question too, Yusuf, and then answer together? Okay, so my second question, Yusuf, is that, are there any recognized training programs? Okay. So my second question is that, are there any recognized training programs for those interested in building a career in the DRE sector?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Damilola, and this is actually, you are doing wonderfully well in moderating and coordinating this session. Could you kindly permit me to share some very few slides, please? Can I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, you can see your screen.
Clear? Okay. A discussion about the training and skills the access in this program of Powering Jobs Nigeria 2022 panel discussion. And my question is to discuss about energy access opportunities and the strategies possibly to be adopted by training providers and the government to be able to key into the PJ program. Training institutions and governments can tap into the youth of Nigeria and provide them with career pathway and develop skilled human capital for energy access jobs by employing the following strategies, as I feel. The decentralized renewable energy opportunities must be identified first, and I believe that is one of the essence of this project. Please, the noise there, please, you are disturbing me. Sorry, please, I was talking to some who seems to be disturbing. So I said the opportunities identification is really a necessity, and I think that is part of what this project has done so far. Additionally, we need collaboration and synergy between training providers themselves as well as with the government levels. What I mean by the government levels is I mean both the federal, the state, and the local governments. They could be able to provide some policy making as well as some funding to some extent when they really collaborate and synergize with the training providers. And the training providers need synergy between themselves because they usually have different curriculums, different concepts, different objectives, different training concepts, even different titles of the concepts, etc., etc. But when they synergize, they are going to have some common goals and they are going to have some common curriculums to some extent. And in addition to that, there is need for common certification platform or awarding body that will be able to synergize these training providers so that they can have all this in common. And the certification could be more acceptable, it could be more nationally recognized, and it would have better quality assurance. There will be better credibility of such certifications. And if I would suggest maybe national skills qualification framework will be a very good tool to be able to provide this, because I know they already have some national occupational standards relating to renewable energy, and they can equally do more. And with this synergy of the training providers and access to some awarding organizations, they can be able to synergize and provide better. And then we need to have funding opportunities and funding providers identification. We need to identify who and who can be able to provide funds, even though I can hear from some of the speakers, we already have some opportunities identified in terms of the fund, but we equally need to understand what are the requirements to be able to tap into these funds. And then we have to be able to provide those requirements before we can tap into the opportunities. And the industry stakeholders collaboration along the energy access and job creation is equally a necessity. Hello? Sorry, please, you are disturbing me. The industry stakeholders are required to have collaboration along the energy access and job creation opportunities. And then there must be a supportive government policies and business model innovations to be able to provide that. And another important tool I think we need to equally leverage on, especially in this post-pandemic era, is the online training opportunities. some people who may not be physically or face-to-face available in some training centers and providers, they can be able to use the opportunities of online training. And I think the second aspect of the question regarding to available programs, I think there are a lot of them. According to the World Bank, bridging the skills gap is key for energy access. And therefore, there is necessity of finding the available programs that can be able to provide this accessibility. I think some of the programs for reskilling and upskilling could include something like mini-grid solar PV design, solar installation and maintenance, solar installation supervision. Is not only about installing or maintaining, but there is need for supervision to ascertain that they are at the level of the standards required. Something like solar thermal systems is equally a very good area. Solar efficiency, solar energy audit, energy efficiency, energy management, hybrid renewable energy systems, energy storage systems, small hydropower plants. This is one area I feel in Nigeria we are not actually leveraging on, and especially in the northern part, we have possibilities of using the small hydropower plants. Then wind energy technologies, even though it requires actually some better expertise to be able to identify the height of the wind, that can be able to provide the technology effective utilization. Issues like power loss reduction is a necessity, especially in the utilities, so that the accessibility could be more. And we need to equally understand standards and regulations for the decentralized renewable energy and mini-grid renewable energy design, etc., etc. Currently in Nigeria, I believe the powering jobs can be able to key into some existing programs to leverage on some training providers and skills development procedures. Example is skills development for youth empowerment, SKYE, which is actually by GIZ. It has been on since 2018 and is expected to last up to 2023. Another one is Nigerian Youth Employment Action Plan, which is supposed to work on between 2021 up to 2024. Youth Employment Program is under the International Labour Organization is equally another one. Then we can have an opportunity from African Continental Free Trade Area, which Nigeria can leverage on to provide these trainings effectively with sound certifications. Then we can be able to export some of these labor market into the African labor market. Then energy transition opportunities and collaborations with the government on policy strategies and job creations, I think is equally another area the training providers can leverage on to be able to make effective training and skilling to our Nigerian youth. Lastly, but not the least, is the national skills qualifications, as I have mentioned earlier, and these could be based upon maybe on the power sector and construction industries, because under the construction industry too, there is electrical installation, and they can leverage on that to be able to resort into this centralized renewable energy like solar systems and the likes. I think, in my opinion, if we can look into them, have some good options. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the invitation. Hello? Hello?
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. Thank you. Sorry, I was on mute. I was on mute. So thank you for all the inputs and eye-opening. It's very, I can see from what you presented that there are so many value chains that we can key into in the renewable energy sector. There is the solar mini grid, there is the solar supervision, there's the solar photovoltaic installation supervision. There's also the solar photovoltaic installation itself. There's the hydro. There are so many value chains that we can have more powering jobs in, and of which we are also having these jobs in them. So many opportunities in the sector right now. And another thing that I really resonates with me is the online training. Like right now, we are all wherever we are, joining in virtually. So there is also opportunity in that space for several online training. And permit me to say that Ashton Solar Academy is also one of the industry player, and we have an existing online platform right now that we offer several subjects and programs on that online platform. And my next question, I would like to go back to Uche. He cut off when he was speaking. Uche, are you available to go back to your question briefly? Just 2 minutes, please. Uche? Uche, are you here? Okay, so probably Uche is still having some technical issues. Uche, we can't hear you. I can see you are speaking, but we can't hear you. Okay, so while Uche is solving the technical issues at his end, I would like to throw out the same question to everyone on the panel. And the question is about the recently launched energy transition plan in Nigeria. So Nigeria has recently launched an ambitious just transition plan. How can the findings of the Powering Jobs report be used to enable decision-making at a policy and investment level in Nigeria to meet the goals in the Just Transition Plan and also enable growth of jobs in the sector? So I'm going to be calling on everyone, and please, within 2 minutes, please give your opinion about this. So Mr. Yusuf, please go ahead first.
Okay, confirm I should go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think I can equally share one slide. I have one slide that relates to that as well. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. When we consider, I think the last two questions so far you have given, referring to powering jobs versus just a transition plan. Yes, I can understand that the just transition plan. Can you see my screen?
It was showing before, but then it went away.
Okay.
You can see it now.
According to the Just Transition Plan, it is expected to provide access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all 200 million Nigerians by 2030, as well as achieving net zero by 2060. And the massive investments in oil, gas, solar, hydrogen, electric vehicles, and other modern energy technologies like energy storage systems are part of the strategies expected to achieve the just transition. The just transition plan. And as I have said earlier on too, I think the skills development SKYE by GIZ, the National Youth Employment Action Plan, the Youth Employment Program YEP, the African Continental Free Trade Area, the energy transition opportunities and collaborations with the government on policies, strategies, and job creations, the national skills qualifications are all very good avenues for the just transition plan to key in for the success of the transition. And additionally, I think when we talk of energy transition, it is too huge, very wide, especially here as we are talking of net zero by 2060. And oil and gas is actually a major contributor to the emissions we are talking about. So there must be available policies to achieve the net zero by these relevant industries, in addition to actually getting the skills, the reskills and the upskills to our Nigerian youth, and then creating more jobs that can be able to provide some level of, I think, what should I call it, some better options as compared to where you have all these emissions as job creation opportunities. I think with this little, I could give opportunities to others to equally contribute. Thank you so much, Damilola. I really appreciate this program, and I really appreciate my involvement to participate. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yusuf. To the general audience, please, if you have any question for our panelists, please do drop them in the Q&A session of the meeting. So the next person is Tobiloba. Tobiloba, please, can you please have your input into our current discussion, please?
Thanks. Thanks for asking. I think the Just Transition Plan gives an insight, gives the investors the confidence to know that government is passionate about the renewable energy industry. And for private sector financiers, that's one of the biggest indicators. You don't want to go and start funding an industry or funding projects, no matter how profitable it might seem in future or how good the project is, and you're exposed to government regulation that can go against you, right? So it's a very good roadmap, and with potential benefits down the line. And I glanced through the report, and I saw that it also integrates into the full scope of Nigeria's economy, both the formal and informal part. And let me just put it out there. Right now, Nigerians spend about $14 billion annually powering their generators at work and also at home. Now, let's assume that some of the about 3/4 of that goes into powering households and light manufacturing. You look at the potential income that can exist, or this sector can create monetarily, right? And you're looking at Nigeria's population growth growing at a rate of maybe 4 to 5% annually, and how by 2050 we're going to be among the top most populated countries in the world, top 5 most populated countries in the world. You're seeing a lot of opportunities down the line, and government, as unlike every other sector more recently, has shown a lot of commitment and has also backed it up with funding and even allocation of other forms of resources. So I think for any investor or any company that wants to operate, that's operating or wants to operate in Nigerian renewable energy sector, you pick the report and see where you fit into, right? And it's not just solar, right? There's gas, there's hydrocarbon, there's wind, there's everything. Look at it, understand it, know where you fit into the big scope of thing, especially from the perspective of government. And every other player in the sector should also do this. I think it means well for all of us, and it's an exciting place to start.
Thank you so much, Tobiloba. Uche, have you resolved the technical issues? Uche, can you hear me? Okay, probably Uche is having technical issues. So I also like to have a small in our session. She made mention of something very important, which was that data lets us know where we are and where we want to be. So the Powering Jobs Consensus actually shows us where we are, while the transition plan shows us where we want to be. So we can actually merge these together, and the Powering Jobs that has just been released can actually guide that transition plan in a proper way. It can guide it in a proper way because the data that is there is very, very important for us to strategize the decentralized renewable energy sector and know how to grow better and faster. So I'm going to be taking some questions in the chat room right now, in the question session. So I can see there is one question for Tobiloba. It says, would your fund be open to providing capital to a Nigerian farm to create jobs for manufacturing wind and solar towers in Nigeria? And this was said by Jean Badia. Tobiloba, that question is for you.
So as long as the components are fully from renewable energy sources, yes. That's the response. I could type if you want to contact us, the general email address, I'll type it in a chat box and everybody can see it. So in case you have a fantastic idea, there's a fantastic project or anything, we're always open to funding sustainable projects with economic viability.
Okay, thank you, Tobiloba, for that. And the last question for today, posted by an anonymous attendee, says that knowing fully well that renewable energy is expensive to establish at an upcoming, how can someone fund himself or herself to start his or her business? Who wants to answer that? Tobiloba, do you want to have that, or Mr. Yusuf?
Can you rephrase?
We can also ask Dr. Shegun as well. He has more experience in giving that perspective, the larger perspective on the business.
Yeah. Mr. Shegun Adaju, do you want to have an input to that? Dr. Shegun Adaju, not Mr. And let me just read the question again. Knowing fully well that renewable energy is expensive, I would say relative, to establish as an upcoming, how can someone fund himself or herself to start his or her business? Okay, if Dr. Shego is not available to answer that, I think I would take that question. So the question says renewable energy is expensive. I would say this is very, very relative, because if you check the cost of the alternative source of energy, especially fossil fuel generator, in the long run, that is very, very expensive as opposed to renewable energy. And as I said earlier, being expensive is relative. Generally, energy is not cheap, especially good energy. So it is very important for everyone to know that for you to have good energy, you need to spend something. And the question I asked, how can someone fund himself or herself to start his or her business? There are so many opportunities out there right now to fund business, and All On is one example right there with different types of funding opportunities. And I also know that with Cleantech Hub, there is a partnership with All On and Cleantech Hub for an incubator. But then you have to start somewhere yourself. You have to have a very, very good concept. So once you have a good concept, I believe it's not that difficult for you to fund a renewable energy business. So that's the final question for today, except we have any other input to that final question from Dr. Shegun or Mr. Uche or any other person on the panel session there. Okay, so over to you, Anna. Yes, okay, Uche, yes, we can hear you finally.
So sorry for the technical challenges. So if I got you right, you're talking about funding on the consumer side. But I think it's not just a consumer-only problem. I think we need to bring the financial institutions, local financial institutions, closer to play. You would find that a lot of the financial institutions we have locally have not come on board completely with understanding this space. And so there are not a lot of products and services available to support individuals, small and medium scale enterprises, or even the private sector participants in this space. So I think there needs to be a lot better work with building and understanding the capacity and the structure for which financial services, especially with the banks across the line, from deposit money banks to the microfinance banks and other institutions in that space, to be able to sort of provide the required financing options and services to support both the businesses, the small and medium scale businesses, and the individuals who would be looking to access funding for uptaking renewable energy products.
Thank you so much for that input, Uche. So the final question, we'll take just one more question for today, and it's from Ahmed Okeke, and it says that Khalid should provide the courses offered by NAPTIN in renewable energy. Khalid, are you here? Okay, seems is no longer here. So I'll mention, he has already mentioned several courses available in Nigeria generally. So I would say these courses are very, very important for us to have that powering job that we actually need, because we have to get certifications, just like Madam Anita Okuribido says, we have to get that certification for us to have that expertise to be able to deploy renewable energy solutions very well. And some of these courses programs include solar photovoltaic supervision, solar mini grid development, energy audits, energy management, and there are several organizations that are accredited to do this in Nigeria right now, which also includes Ashtam Solar Academy. It also includes NAPTIN. It also includes Blue Camel. There are so many organizations right out there in Nigeria right now that is accredited to do these trainings and give good accreditation to everyone in the decentralized renewable energy industry. So thank you very much. It's been a very great pleasure for me moderating this session and gaining so much about the industry, about powering jobs. And now I hand over to Anat. Anat, over to you.
Thank you, Damilola. I mean, thank you for moderating this session and making it so interactive and lively. And thank you so much for the panelists who participated and gave their expert views on the session as well. As closing remarks, as we're ending the session for the launch today, I would like to call upon Dara from Clean Technology up to give the closing remarks. There's yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, we can.
You can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Powerful and Technology, I want to say a big thank you to everyone for attending this launch. Especially I want to thank our panelists and moderator, Ms. Damilola Aseye, for moderating a wonderful session. I also want to thank Dr. Shego Daju for giving the opening remarks for attending this program as well. I just want to thank Mr. Toby Lola Faderese of Olon, and of course, Mr. Uche Ogoji for attending this program. And of course, engineer Yusuf from NAPTIN as well. And Her Excellency, the First Lady of Ondo State, Mrs. Betty Ayanwo Akirilolu for attending this program, for providing lots of great insights and lots of key nuggets are necessary for how we can put organization around driving jobs in the renewable sector in Nigeria and Africa as well. I just want to thank all our people who attend this program. We understand that we don't take it for granted for you attending because we understand that all of us are busy with this period. So we are very grateful that you can make time out of your busy schedule to attend this program. And we hope that through this launch, we can drive more conversations around energy access, around creating jobs, and around creating a more collaborative approach towards achieving and ensuring that Nigeria can key into the jobs that are created in the dairy sector in the next coming years. On behalf of everybody, once again, thank you very much. And I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day and the weekend as well.